Begin with my greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and Europe. Good early evening to our friends in the Middle East and India. Good evening to our friends in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. Good late evening to our friends in Australia. Nice to see you all. We have some questions, JC.
Yes, Phra Ajahn. Question 1. Dear Ajahn, in recent sessions you have described that a belief in heavens, angels and Devas, etc. is an aspect of conventional right view for Buddhist practitioners, as well as spiritual benefits in an age where a lot of people experience anxiety and loneliness. Are there potential some emotional or psychological benefits to embracing such a worldview, which might be useful in the present circumstances? Thank you.
Interesting question. Thank you. The traditional Buddhist worldview and cosmology does bring, if one can embrace it, many benefits on many levels. From what I've observed, what I've experienced. And so when Lord Buddha describes that belief in heavens and hells also, ghost realms, animal realms, karma and rebirth, past lives and future lives, when Lord Buddha describes that as being a part of skillful right view, and understanding in the Eightfold Path right view comes first, we understand that the Buddha Dhamma is a wisdom tradition. If Lord Buddha is saying this is a skillful view or right view, then it's wise. What is wisdom? In a Buddhist sense, we understand wisdom to be correlating to truth. So if it's a skillful view, it means on one level, it's accurate, it's truthful. But most people, of course, can't see these things at will directly. But Lord Buddha explains that wisdom can be cultivated in three ways. Firstly, by listening to teachings about wisdom subjects, reading, studying. That's the first level. So you may hear monks and nuns, practitioners, may read in the suttas, reference to other realms, parallel realms, higher realms, lower realms, past lives, future lives. Then the next thing that we do to consciously develop wisdom is through then contemplation, deep consideration. And so if it is skillful, if it is true, it should hold up to logic and reason. One of the things that helped me to take on this aspect of the teaching is that I had wondered since childhood why, we used to watch TV coming home from school and you see the African babies starving to death. And I was coming home to a middle-class home in Australia and we always had dinner. And I was just kind of wondering, like, why are there hundreds of thousands of people in another part of the world that don't have enough to eat? Not really understanding that. And then wars, see it on the news, and people living in very crowded places, dangerous places. And we had a lovely front yard, a lovely backyard, BMX bikes, and spent time on the beach. And kind of wondering, why is it like this for us? And why is it like that for other people? If the teachings on karma and rebirth at least give something of an explanation for why beings experience different things, why there's such diversity in appearance, abilities, intellect, abundance. At least it makes sense as a theory that there's some pre-occurring conditions. So that's logical. And then, how does a Buddha come to be? How does a Buddha come about? A remarkable being with incredible abilities of perception and discernment that foremost in the world. How is it possible to be foremost in the world and have all of these remarkable abilities if you haven't been working on it for a really long time? It just makes sense. The Buddha can have all of these abilities, all of these qualities, all of this merit because he invested a lot of time. Makes sense. So belief in these things is skillful and I believe true and accurate in terms of conventional reality, conditioned reality. That's the way the law of karma, the fact of rebirth, is a part of the way samsara works. Of course, in our practice, the way anybody develops insight, the way anybody develops samadhi, is by bringing the mind inwards and being truly present in the present moment. It's the present moment that has the enormous potential to liberate the mind. But the belief in these things helps us to maintain our focus, and it helps us to not make unskillful karma that may be an obstruction. If we make some mistakes, we make obstructive karma that will affect our opportunities. We can also make auspicious, helpful karma that will support our opportunities so that we will progress on the path towards liberation. That's the point. Most people are aspiring for that. But in terms of more mundane benefits, I don't want to dismiss the value of mundane benefits because well-being and contentment in the present moment is actually the foundation for samadhi. Samadhi, concentration, collectedness, is the foundation for having a stable enough mind to have some insight. So we need a certain amount of well-being. We need a certain amount of contentment. We need some happiness. So can the belief in parallel realms, heavens, rebirth, be a cause for some happiness? I believe so. The important thing, though, is that one doesn't take it on as like you're having a philosophical discussion and you decide, yeah, in terms of philosophies, that's the one I resonate with. The reason we contemplate in the three ways, listening, studying, using our intellect, contemplating, analytical abilities, and then practicing a lot, is because we need to bring it into our heart so that we really believe it. It's not like, oh, yeah, I believe that, and then get on with your life as if it doesn't have any consequences. It's like, if you really believe it, it has enormous consequences. And so, what are some of the benefits? If you believe that every good deed is going to have a positive, wholesome consequence, then you're going to do more good deeds. If you don't believe that good deeds have any wholesome or positive consequences, you're not going to do many of them. In terms of sometimes we can get frustrated in our practice. We put forth a certain amount of effort, but we don't seem to be getting anywhere. You believe in these things, but you can't see them. But if you have trust, faith is also very closely linked to the qualities of trust and confidence. If you believe something, you don't stop making the effort because you understand, you believe that the effort is going to give results one day. So you don't let up on your efforts. You keep making efforts. The opposite of that is if you don't believe that good deeds have any good consequences, you don't bother doing them, or not much of them. And it can get pretty scary if a person starts to believe that only tough, mean, ruthless people get ahead in this world. People who waste too much time thinking about other people's feelings are weak. The people in the world that make something of their lives are the go get 'em types. I want it, I'm taking it. Those are the winners. If you start to think like that, law of the jungle, the most ruthless is the one that gets to the top. If you start to think like that, you probably have unskillful thoughts, unskillful speech, unskillful actions, and you may get born as a tiger and you may get to be the king of the jungle. If you think that just eating those around you and clawing your way to the top is what's going to get you to the top, you might make your way to the top of the animal world. And it's very difficult once you fall to a lower realm. It's difficult to get up. So this kind of idea, there's things that occur in the English language that kind of, we have to be mindful how these things affect us. So no good deed goes unpunished. It's an interesting saying. And it's true that sometimes when we make the effort to try to help people, people aren't always grateful. And sometimes we make good karma and something not nice happens in our life. So we might say those things in moments. Only the good die young. That's an interesting saying. I'm middle-aged. I guess I'm no good, Somehow I made it to be middle-aged. So if we look at where cynicism goes, where fatalism goes, it's pretty scary. You're going to a person who doesn't believe in rebirth or higher realms, doesn't believe that good deeds will get good outcomes, probably become very hedonistic and have kind of coarse sensual tastes. There will be the belief that one has to squeeze as much pleasure out of this physical organism as possible, the 5 sense bases. And sometimes taking pleasure from others is what people with coarse minds perceive as pleasure. So that's dangerous and scary. In a time when the level of virtue in the world is degenerating, more wars, more famines, more disparity in the wealth, etc. Not believing that your good efforts will bring good results. Like maybe people don't feel that they can get progress much financially, or it's not as easy to own a home or get a new car or go on a holiday as it was a decade or so ago for many people. So life can become a bit of a grind, and there's not many carrots, there's not many things a lot of people can look forward to. But if you understand and truly believe that every time you meditate, you're producing auspicious merit, every time you chant, you're producing auspicious merit, every time you make a generous deed, no matter how small, according to your means, and you have great confidence that these things will bring great fruits, you will have more and more moments of joy doing these things because you have faith. And first, one gets a certain amount of joy because they're intrinsically wholesome, but also one gets the joy of having confidence that you're going in a wholesome direction that will have a happy outcome. And then with regards to believing in the heaven realm, so thinking psychologically, I believe I've studied a little bit of about Jungian archetypes and a little bit of psychology. Sometimes as a Buddhist monk, you have to study a little bit of psychology because you need to know how crazy you are, how crazy the monks are, how crazy your lay students are. Sometimes you need to discern okay, this is this hindrance, this is this kilesa, this is karmic obstruction. Sometimes it's a mental illness. So sometimes we need to be able to discern some of these things, and it's not a bad thing to have a little bit of psychological understanding. So one of my hobbies, I'm not a professional, but I have a interest in human psychology. To believe in a benevolent king-like figure in the cosmos. So for us, that would be Saka Devaraja, king of the Devas, emperor of heaven. To believe that there is order in the cosmos, that there is something benevolent and good that is bigger than you and more powerful than you, conventionally speaking, but that wishes you well. This has a tremendous effect upon human psychology. And so apparently Saka's throne, when a being is doing something of particular merit, something very auspicious, something wholesome, his throne heats up, and he'll have a look down to the human world. Who's doing? What are they doing? And he becomes mindful. He becomes aware of that good deed. And one of the things he does is he supports people who are cultivating goodness. And so just to know this, if you believe it, if you really believe it, and I do, if you really believe that there's an emperor in heaven that supports good beings, who is aware of people who cultivate goodness, who is surrounded by other good beings, this has a tremendous, and not just in Buddhism, but what I'm saying is for Buddhists, we can benefit from taking this on. In the Christian tradition, of course, people do pray to the Heavenly Father. And if they believe that a Heavenly Father exists, that is helpful to them, particularly in times of suffering. I've seen some very interesting interviews of people who had tremendous abuse as children, just awful. I won't go into the details, but just awful, really kind of horrible torture kind of stuff, who actually managed to heal themselves significantly with the help of a therapist, but also with the belief in a God. What that belief in a God seemed to do for those people was to have faith that there was something good that was bigger than them, that the world isn't all bad, to trust that there is something good outside of oneself that they could pray to, helped their minds to heal. So it's potentially very, very powerful. So I do think, can there be emotional and psychological benefits to taking on this aspect of Buddhist cosmology and worldview? I believe so. The other thing, of course, is if we understand that the Devas can and do get enlightened when listening to Dhamma and contemplating Dhamma, that's also extremely encouraging. If we want to take Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as our refuge, and I hope we all do, Lord Buddha is the one that realized Nibbana. He discovered the ancient path that had been covered over for a period of time. It's always there, but he rediscovered it. And then he explained to us how we cultivate it, how we progress along it, so that we may realize the same liberation, the Dhamma. The Sangha, those who are currently practicing well, those who have practiced well, those who are practicing rightly and correctly. The longer the Buddha's dispensation goes on in this world, the human world, the smaller the numbers of beings who have attained to the stages of enlightenment are. That's normal. But if we can embrace, if we can consider, we were talking last week that Saka Devaraja visited the Buddha in Rajgir, had a Dhamma discussion with him. Lord Buddha answered his questions, and Saka Devaraja had a pure vision of Dhamma, and so did the 80,000 deities in his retinue who came along with him. One teaching, one occasion, 80,000 plus one beings who saw Dhamma, attained to Dhamma. There's another sutta where Sariputta was describing how for the way it is for a lot of beings when they become engaged in the process towards enlightenment, that it's a matter of stages. So there's a stream enterer. Many beings experience the stream entry path, Sotapanna Magga, but not the full fruit, deepen their insight. they get the full fruition of the stream entry. Sakadagami path, and then Sakadagami fruit, where greed and hatred are significantly ameliorated. Anagami path, Anagami fruit, where greed and hatred are completely eradicated from the mind. Arahanta path, Arahanta fruit, where all of the vanity, conceiving of a self is completely uprooted. So Sariputta was giving the teaching to a human, but the deities were like a large retinue of Devas were, oh, Sariputta's going to give a teaching, Sariputta's going to give a teaching. So they were listening in. And many of them attained to enlightenment while listening to Sariputta, to complete enlightenment. When I read things like that, I suspect that those Devas, some of them may have been stream enterers already. Where are you likely to be reborn if you're already a stream enterer? Probably in heaven. And so Sariputta's going to go, okay, listen, okay, finish off the last bit of, take out the dust that's in your eyes. I can't remember the number, but I remember it was a large number. So for myself, when I read that, I don't have any, for myself, I don't have any challenges. It's not a stretch of my imagination to believe that there are millions of devas in heaven who have attained to paths and fruits on the Buddhist path. Do you think that has a positive effect on my mind? I think it does. If you watch the news and you see bad thing after bad thing, muggings, robbings, bombings, fires, floods, famines, you watch a lot of that, and you're going to think the world is just terrible, terrible place, very depressing, not much hope. But if you really believe that this path and this practice leads to heaven and beyond, and when you get to heaven, you will enjoy the company of millions of enlightened beings, and that might be as close as next life, you're not going to waste too much time being depressed about how awful this world is. You're going to recognize, I need to sow the causes so that that will be the outcome for me. I've met the Buddha's teachings, the path to heaven and beyond. I want to cultivate that. I want to embrace that. So if we really believe it, that's going to help you make the skillful efforts that you need to make. And it's going to restrain you from doing unskillful things that might obstruct your path to heaven and beyond. So I want to encourage you. And I'm just wondering if I should tell a few stories. People like it when I tell stories. Should I tell stories? Anyone think I should tell a story? Nodding heads. So, I think it is important to talk a little bit about more recent experience with regards to this phenomenon, because to make it more real. So if you think it's something that just occurs in suttas that were, memorized and then recorded 2,500 years ago, and how's that relevant to my life? So I'll just tell you some stories. I will be going to Bodh Gaya in about a week, life permitting, where I am hoping to meditate for 3 hours for 3 sessions for 30 days. We Buddhists, we like the number 3. So 3 hours, 3 times a day, 30 days, 270 hours of meditation, if that goes how I would like it to. I am not the only bhikkhu who meditates for many hours under the Bodhi tree. I have friends. I've been going for many years, and I have sometimes a bhikkhu who sits to my right and a bhikkhu who sits to my left, and they are Thai bhikkhus, and I can speak Thai. And we talk. Would you be surprised that a monk who likes to meditate for 9 or 10 hours a day would talk to another monk who likes to meditate for 9 or 10 hours a day? Open your eyes for a second, stretch your legs, look sideways. Oh, he's opened his eyes too, sipping a cup of coffee. So sometimes some of these people who meditate for 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day for a month at a time see things in their meditation. If anyone was going to, wouldn't you think it might be those people? And sometimes they tell me what they saw. So, one monk that I know who meditates a lot in Bodh Gaya told me that he saw Krishna, a Hindu, what we would consider to be a Hindu god, came to him, and he was blue and he had a flute. I asked, what did he look like? Blue skin, peacock feather in his hair, and marigold garland, radiating light. So the Buddha refers, the word Devata means radiant ones. So the Devas radiate light. But Krishna's flower garland, this monk said, was somewhat singed, a little bit burned. And this monk and Krishna had a conversation. And the monk asked, why are your flowers singed, a little bit wilted? And he said, when I come down to try to help human beings, very few people have pure devotion these days. And I try to help them, but it's very, very hot. So it's an interesting thing to consider. And I'm sure that Krishna can go back to wherever he lives and that his flowers replenish their freshness. But if you consider that in the time of the Buddha, I think the population of India was 40 million people. Now it's 1.5 billion people. And in terms of like bhakti practices, devotional practices, probably people in the past, simple villagers, when they thought of a deity like Krishna, they would have had a quality of loving devotion and probably didn't ask for much. But these days, Krishna, I want a Mercedes. Krishna, help my son pass his exams. Krishna, I want a beautiful wife. Krishna, I want to be more rich. Krishna, And so, yeah, it's just an interesting. And so he is a Buddhist monk. And some people might wonder, why would a Buddhist monk see a Hindu deity? And it's a good question, isn't it? Do you think Krishna wanders around thinking, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Hindu? Or is Krishna just a deity, a radiant being with metta who lives in a heaven realm, who cares for people? And who would Krishna most likely want to pop in and say hi to? Probably somebody practicing the brahmacharya, radiating loving kindness for hours a day, and spreading metta to beings. So, okay, so I've given you a story, and that's enough. For those who meditate a lot, when the mind gets many, many moments of kanika samadhi and then some periods of upachara samadhi, that's the space where those kind of visions can occur. The mind has the subtlety. And in a way, if you like to understand it this way, on the level of mind, the vibration is already resonating with the heaven realms. And so beings who are abiding in that realm can make themselves seen to a human being whose mind is vibrating at that level. So it's not uncommon for serious practitioners who have some ability to abide in the upachara samadhi to have visions of deities. And okay, next question, JC.
Thank you, Phra Ajahn. Question 2, Dear Ajahn Achalo, thanks to you, I meditate every day since February 2022. I paused to meditate from 45 minutes to 3 hours daily and even 5 hours a day in some periods. And this has brought a lot of meaning into my life. But now I feel a bit tired and wanted to reduce my meditation practice to 2 hours and 30 minutes, or maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes daily. Would that be still enough and effective? I know Ajahn Goenka recommended you to meditate 3 hours daily at least, so I wanted to emulate you. For information, I alternate between walking and sitting meditation, And don't meditate for 3 hours in a row, but in a session of 1 hour each. Thank you.
If I remember correctly, the SN Goenka recommended an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening for lay people in 2 separate sessions. Yeah, it depends. So if a person has a somewhat busy life, but they can make one chunk of time, like personally, I think that 3 sessions a day is probably best. Okay, first of all, let me say, I rejoice in this person's sincere efforts. Sadhu. I don't get this kind of question very often. I'm very happy when I do. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And I'm wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad I was able to play a part in you making such a wonderful commitment. In general, I think that if people break up the sessions in terms of maintaining a quality of clarity, presence of mind, mindfulness throughout the day, a session in the morning, a session in the afternoon, and a session in the evening is a good strategy if you want to have consistent mindfulness. Because mindfulness is actually something that needs to be, it's a condition that leads to the unconditioned. It's something that needs to, everybody has some mindfulness, but it's something that needs to be made more potent, more powerful, more resilient, more consistent. So like picking up a wholesome meditation object, what many people experience is if they do meditate in the morning is that by mid-afternoon, the sense of clarity and presence of mind is somewhat diminished and the mind is getting scattered and overcome with hindrances, etc. So if we can pick up our meditation again mid-afternoon, re-establish that sense of clarity and presence if possible. But for a lot of people who have to work, that isn't really possible. Other people find then if they do have a busy day that to have a longer session in the morning, then they will have a more resilient quality of mindfulness because they settled in it and stayed with it for longer. So depending on a person's lifestyle. But yes, I do think that 2.5 to 3 hours a day is a good effort for a lay person. It's enough. And it's not uncommon. I just thought I think I should mention this. It's not uncommon for people to practice very hard, very sincerely for a period of time, and then it kind of feels a bit dry, and it might feel like you're not getting anywhere, and it can get a bit harder without the initial spurt of inspiration. That's normal. And then it's even among the forest monks. So I've had a monk living with me the last 1.5 years who was meditating 6 and then 7 and 8 up to 10 hours a day. And then doing that for a year. And then recently he asked if he would have my blessing to do some Dharma outreach work. And I think that's a good, so he went down to 5 hours a day and plus 5 hours of work. So he's a Russian speaking bhikkhu who is in the process of translating all of my teachings at my website into Russian and using AI voice apps to have Ajahn Achalo speaking in Russian. So I'm going to have a twin website in Russian. And interestingly, Lumpur Biek said that there will be a huge Buddhist practice in Russia in the future. So I would like to play a small role, sowing some seeds which may sprout there. And I think sometimes it needs to be like that. Sometimes you try really, really hard and you get what you can, but then things start to feel a bit dry. And then one does something, a wholesome project, just kind of a little bit less of the formal practice. But this person is saying 2.5 hours. That's great standard. And then one can do something skillful or wholesome for a period of time to have a creative challenge, just shake things up a little bit. The trick, of course, is not getting too completely absorbed in your wholesome projects and neglecting your practice. So it's a balance. But, monks in the forest tradition will have the rainy season retreat, try to put forth more effort. Other periods in the year, also more retreat time, or sometimes wandering on Tudong, finding quiet forests or practicing with other teachers for periods of time. But then we also have periods where we might contribute to a building project, or we might contribute to a book publishing project, or we might do some teaching. So we can do some wholesome activities because the monks are also practicing dana, sila, and bhavana. So there's various ways that the monks and nuns will practice dana. So I think it's okay to try really, really hard for as long as you can and then relax a little bit do some skillful things. Maybe it's study, maybe it's more chanting, and then pick it up again. Increase your efforts when you can, after you've had a bit of a break. Sadhu. Did all of you other people hear that? Reducing his efforts from 4 and 5 hours to only 2.5.
Thank you, Phra Ajahn. Question 3, dear Phra Ajahn. I feel a lot of love for many aspects of culture and tradition in the East. However, I was born in a country that is far away from you all. Even from a young age, I felt comfortable with elements of many other cultures. Here I feel disconnected from my culture of birth, like I'm on the outside of things, trying to find a home in many diverse experiences. So is there something in my karmic history that explains all of this? If so, what should I do to fix it? How to go home? Thank you, Phra Ajahn.
Yes, so I do empathize. I had that experience in the beginning of this lifetime, that although things were pretty comfortable in some respects, I didn't feel that I was in the right place. We've all made all sorts of different types of karmas in our past lives. I really believe that. And so we've all done good things. We've all done bad things. Something that we can do, if anyone was involved in separating people from something that they loved, causing a separation in a relationship, for example, or separating children from parents, for example, that could be the kind of thing that might manifest as one being separated from the place that feels like home. And in terms of what we can do about it, is we have to sow the causes to be born among more like-minded people. So dana, sila, bhavana, Buddhist study, Buddhist practice. The logical outcome of that will be the more chanting you do, the more Buddhist chanting you do, the more likely you will be born in a place surrounded by other people who chant Buddhist chants. The more dana you practice, particularly towards Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the more likely you will be born among people who practice dana towards those things. The more you meditate, the more you listen to the teachings, the more likely you will be born in a place where you will be joining others in being able to listen to these things. And when people make merit in different ways, it's very interesting. If Lord Buddha recommends that when we make offerings, that we ask our family and friends to join in with us, even if it's just a little bit. And the reason he says this is in our future lives, we will be born among those that we have this wholesome habit, that we like to practice generosity together. So this is a habit that we cultivate. We can ask our friends to join in, ask our families to join in. Then you've got karmic connections with these people making some wholesome karma together. Then you're more likely to be born in their company and continue to do good and skillful, wholesome things together. But some people, I've also seen occasionally somebody wants to make special, powerful merit all by themselves, and they don't. Yeah, and sometimes their intention is to be rich. So if a person wants to make this particular potent merit with this monk because they want to be rich next life, that's the kind of thing that can manifest as having resources, but not having many friends that want to make merit with you. So it's one has to be careful about how one makes one's merit. And yeah, I think these days there is the option of joining online gatherings. Obviously, it's not exactly the same as being able to go down to the center or the monastery, but it does join it energetically. All of these people now who've joined this group from different parts of the world, we're kind of making this karma together, joining together to listen to a bhikkhu speak on Buddha Dhamma. it's a way of connecting with like-minded people, and I think it's skillful. Yeah, so doing online classes, online meditations, and I guess if there is a meditation group, in a order that you trust, it might be nice to. I'm not sure which country this person lives in, if there are some temples in the big cities or if there are meditation centers, but yeah, joining in doing retreats if it's possible. And another thing, of course, would be a annual trip to Thailand if it's possible. It's like, come and, visit some temples, visit some teachers, come to places where large numbers of people come to make offerings and practice together. That's a very potent karmic cause. To a lot of people travel to Ubon Ratchathani January 15, 16 to commemorate Luang Por Chah's Nibbana passing day. And I think there were more than 800 monks and a couple of thousand lay people just a few days ago. That kind of thing. So for myself, I don't like it so much because I don't like I don't like big crowds, and I would prefer to go and see my preceptor, once all the people go home. I go and see him on a nice quiet day, but I get to live with monks every day. And I also go down and see my teacher on his birthday. Normally there'd be about 100 monks and 500 lay people. So there's things that we can do if you want that sense of communion, kind of time a trip to Southeast Asia with one of these days. And you probably won't feel lonely, but you might want some time alone, but you won't feel lonely. And yeah, but it's normal. I think it's unusual in the world to get only supportive, auspicious, helpful conditions. The normal theme in samsara is some good conditions, some challenging conditions, and we have to do the best we can, making the best of what we have. That's where what most people are working with. And but yes, as I was talking earlier, having confidence having great confidence, truly believing on a cellular level, deep in the heart, that every good deed is going to have good consequences, that every moment of chanting, listening, studying, practicing is going to lead to meeting Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and that as close as your next life, I'm not recommending suicide, but I'm as close as your next life might be, among the companies of the Devas, who are Buddhists, who are stream enterers or Sakadagamis. And if we want to be born in such company, we have to sow as many wholesome causes as we can in this precious human birth that we have. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Phra Ajahn. Question for the Ajahn. When I was in primary school and high school, some of the girls played the Ouija board. I saw the glass move on both occasions and found this quite disturbing. Would this have been a negative energy from ghost realm? Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't recommend anybody plays with Ouija board. I think to be able to move into the glass and to physically move a glass around on a Ouija board, it's probably a being that is quite close to the human realm. So it would, in most cases, probably be a ghost, or what they call in Thai a sambhavesi, a being in between births waiting for its rebirth. And the thing about doing something like that, conjuring a spirit, inviting a spirit, is that you don't really know if it's a good one or a bad one, but you're opening a door for something to come in. And even in a ordinary city, I don't know if you'd open your door and just say anything come in. You want to have some discernment about what you invite in. And there are lots of stories of people doing this and then something malevolent being in the house and then having to do something to kind of rid themselves of a spirit. So yeah, the Ouija boards are not recommended. Probably a low level spirit or being.
Thank you, Phra Ajahn.
I also experimented when I was 18 with a Ouija board, and I had a horrible experience. If you want another story. So a boy, this spirit entered him, and it was really creepy. It was like serious Steven Spielberg poltergeist stuff, man. I mean, his physical appearance changed so that his ears, his complexion turned green, and his teeth appeared to grow longer in his ears, and he kind of picked up a candle tea light, and it was a cap of, I've got a good memory. It was the cap of a tequila bottle, if I recall. This one I was 18, so this is 30, more than 30 years ago. And he had it in his hand, and he just touched it like this, and it flew at my face. And as it hit my face, this icy cold, malicious energy kind of went through my body with this. And he looked at me and he said, "World War III." And I'm like, oh. So that was the last time I used a Ouija board. And that was the first time I still remember his name, but I won't mention it. But the next morning, he couldn't remember any of that. So it seemed like the entity that was coming into the glass decided to move into his body for a period of time, and it wasn't a very nice one. And I never used a Ouija board again since watching a human being turn into a gremlin in front of my face and freak me out with a tequila bottle top. So yes.
Wow, thank you. That is
I only just remembered that story. Yeah, that did happen.
Thank you, Phra Ajahn. Question 5. How to deal with colleagues who are rude and talk behind your back in a new company? Thank you.
Yesterday, a monk came. He wanted to stay overnight at an Nandagiri monastery because it was halfway between where he was coming from and where he was going from. And I know this monk. I won't mention his name. But I hadn't seen him, I guess, for 10 years. Well, I hadn't had a conversation with him for 10 years. So anyway, so he came to see me. I'm more senior to him. So he came to pay respects. And the first thing he said is, "Oh, you've become fat." And then the next thing he said was, "Wow, you look so old." So I'm just sharing that so that you know it's not only your work colleagues who are rude. And this is someone who was coming to ask a favor, who wants to stay in our place. So I gave him a gift, 8 prints of my beautiful paintings, because I believe I have a lot of very lovely, sweet, kind people in my life. And occasionally somebody rude turns up. And I believe that by being kind and generous and giving gifts, less and less of that type of person will be turning up in my future. So I didn't feel like giving him a gift. I didn't feel like letting him stay. And by the way, Shunzi and Joyce and JC, you know this bhikkhu, but I'm not telling you who it is. And so I gave him a gift and I let him stay. But I wasn't impressed. And I think white people on the outside, we do age faster than Asian people. So because we have less melatonin, and how much depends on how much sun you get exposed to. So Asians on the outside often age a little more slowly. But it's also interesting, like half the Asian people who I know who are my age have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. So it's this weird phenomenon where they look young on the outside, but on the inside, they're kind of falling apart already. And I have I have normal blood sugar level, normal heart blood pressure, and ordinary cholesterol. You'll be happy to know, even if I'm shriveling on the outside. So, yeah. So if we can be patient and if we can be generous towards them, then we will attract more nice people in our future. And sometimes if it's really bad, one has to try to set a boundary, but the best way to set boundaries is firm and gentle, skillful assertiveness. It's never recommended to be kind of obnoxious, and speak at a time when you can manage calmness. Ask the person permission to speak. There can be ways. But yeah, I think it's quite common, even for us bhikkhus, to have to associate with people who are rude. So. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a good
Ajahn.
trip,
Take care.
Ajahn.
You,
Hope to
Ajahn.
seeing you and get back.
Thank you.
Miss you.